Hello, welcome back to Tactical Tuesday with Johnny Tiger. On June 21st, 2022, as I've spoken about this before, lately we have been incorporating a bit of Wing Chun into our Krav Maga uh, uh, program. Don't ask me, I'm not the one making the decision. I'm the second in command, so I do what they tell me. I teach whatever they tell me to teach. You want me to teach Wing Chun? I'll teach Wing Chun. You want me to teach yoga? I'll teach yoga. I'm just following your order. So, anyways, last night, one of our female students brought up a point that inspired today's episode. As some of you doubtless have seen, Wing Chun in Ip Man movies, in Bruce Lee movies, or other various Kung Fu movies. Wing Chun is very big on rapid punches and quick entries. So if someone was throwing punches at me, my Wing Chun stuff would be to parry this and get in there and get my own hit in and get back out and wait, catching their forearm on my forearm with their punching and then get in, punch, 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 get back out. Okay, that's your basic Wing Chun. Yeah. So one of my our female students said to me, she said, is there even a point to this? Because even if I could parry you perfectly and do a perfect entry, how much damage can I actually do to you, even if I hit you with everything I have? That is a very valid point. And this is why a lot of people who learn things like Wing Chun blindly, pun intended, because I'm a blind guy talking about learning blindly, but this is why a lot of people who learn Wing Chun and other martial arts blindly end up feeling disillusioned, feeling betrayed, let down, because they don't understand why they're doing this. And they follow the program, but what they are taught to do, they feel it's not working. Introducing the Wing Chun butterfly sword. The biggest secret in Wing Chun, but also the key to make you understand everything Wing Chun is meant to do is that everything in Wing Chun is not built just for empty hand combat. Everything that you do in Wing Chun, the rapid movement, the rapid strikes, the parrying, the quick entry, the hit, retreat, the blocking, the parrying, the backhand parrying, the entry, the low entry, the backhand blocking, all this stuff. It's meant to have a pair of these swords in your hand. It's meant for blade work. In another word, if this female student and we were in a old-fashioned sword fight, and I attack her, and she parry me, and she enter and get that jab in with the sword, that's it. Okay? That's when her Wing Chun would be totally effective. It's not meant just for fisticuff. If you just want to learn fisticuff, you can learn boxing. Okay? Now, why is this a highly guarded secret? Because very few people stay with Wing Chun long enough to learn how to use these swords. Most Wing Chun practitioners, most Wing Chun masters, at least the responsible ones, will not teach people how to use these until very, very, very advanced level. And let me quickly clarify this. I am not an advanced Wing Chun practitioner. I did not learn how to use these from Wing Chun. I'm not by any means a master of a dual sword, a two-sword system, or butterfly sword, or anything like that. But I have handled enough weapons, trained with enough weapons, and uh, worked with enough systems that I can give you guys a quick talk about these very nifty little Chinese weapons. Some people call them the butterfly swords, but their real name were 八卦刀, means the Octagon Sword, or later known as 八斩刀, means eight cutting sword. Wow, they call the eight cutting sword. Let me show you guys very quick. One in each hand, the right hand, one cut, two cut, diagonally, one, diagonally, two, horizontal, three, horizontal, four, downward diagonal, five, downward diagonal to the left, six, and then forward slash, seven, forward slash, eight. Okay, this is why they're called the eight cutting sword, 八斩刀, because with both of these swords in hand, you can handle every single direction you want to cut at around you without having to really break a sweat. Okay? But these swords have some history behind them, and they're even older than Wing Chun. This is why, if anyone tries to tell you Wing Chun is not built around the sword was made for Wing Chun, that person doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay, these swords are way older than Wing Chun. Wing Chun was a more modern martial art that when it was developed, they decided to adopt the eight slash sword or the octagon swords into their core value because they needed something easy to conceal and very easy to learn and can cover a lot of facets in a large area. We'll talk more about the practicality of uh, butterfly swords. I really hate that name, but that's the most English recognized name, so I'll use that. We'll cover that in a little bit, but first, a little bit of history lesson. Now, I'm not going to start rambling off about the name of this monk or that general or stuff like that because you can read about all that on Wikipedia. I'm going to give you guys a bare bones fact about these swords. These swords were originally developed by the Shaolin monks to be something that they could use for self-defense, but something that they wouldn't kill people with. So the initial design of these swords, they were always carried in pairs, and the initial design, they wouldn't have the pointy bit in the front, they wouldn't have the point. So you would have the blade, the thick blade, and then the front would be almost like a secondary angle, but there's no point, so you can't stab with it. The original generation, the first generation octagon sword, were made that only the front couple of inches were sharpened. So if need be, the monk that defending themselves could slice the tendon or the muscles of an attacker without killing them. Uh, a little quick trivia, when you're in a blade situation, a stab will always kill someone a lot easier than a cut. So if you don't want to kill someone, cutting them, okay, that's okay. You can cut a person many, many times. They'll bleed all over the place. I'm not saying that it's okay to cut people, but I'm saying in a self-defense situation, if you cut someone, most likely they'll survive. If you stab them, most likely they'll die. Okay? So the octagon swords were originally made only with a little bit of the front sharpened. The rest of the blade is like what you see here, very thick, very broad. It traditionally have to be 3 inches wide from hilt to the front. This is because was meant to be a bludgeoning weapon and a parrying weapon. This is why you carry two. Okay, you would have one if your opponent, the highwayman or the uh, bad guy. Obviously, they didn't care. They carry something sharp like a katana or a sword or a spear. So you want something thick enough, heavy enough to be able to block incoming force, and then the other one you go in and either break their arm with it by hitting them hard, or you use a little bit of sharp edge and cut alongside the arm here, alongside the leg here. Yeah. Also, the octagon sword, the butterfly sword, always had to be tailor-made. Right? Not like these ones that I just grabbed off Amazon. These are like totally the wrong size for me. Because traditionally, the blade of the sword only should go from the user's wrist to the user's forearm. But as you guys can see, this one actually go past my elbow. Traditionally, the length should only be from wrist to elbow. These one, as you can see, could go past my elbow for about 3 inches. This is not good, right? For something to mess around with is okay, but this is not okay for proper butterfly sword, octagon sword training. Why? Let me quickly show you guys. Because these swords were meant to be carried under the monk's robe, or very often up the sleeve of the monk's robe. But if the blade is longer than the forearm, see what happens? If I have it in my sleeve of my gi and I bend my wrist, these almost like poking through my gi. And this is good thing. These are training models. Like if these were real thing, this would shred the sleeve of my gi, right? So traditionally, this should only be as long as the forearm itself. Also, because there are a lot of uh, techniques, most of them not very practical, admittedly, but there are techniques in how to use these butterfly swords that require you to ow. See what happened there? It's required to spin the blade on its guard like this. But with the blade that's too long, like this, what just happened is if I spin it, it hit myself in the chest. So the only way for me to actually twirl this is to have my arm all the way out like this. If my arm is too close to my body, it hit me in the chest, right? So traditionally, that's why you can't have these too long. So during the last imperial dynasty in China, a secret society, and this is the part where we go into a lot of boulder dash and bullcrap about the legends of Wing Chun and Bak Ching Dao, the butterfly sword stuff. There is a lot of secret society, a lot of like clans, and there's no document because it was a secret society. But this monk told that monk, and that monk told my grandfather. There's a lot of that stuff going on. But as far as anyone knows, during the last dynasty in China, the Qing dynasty, the Shaolin monks decided that they didn't want to just be monks anymore. They wanted to help fight off overthrow the Qing dynasty. They wanted to become rebels. So they developed Wing Chun as a fighting system. And since we are making a new fighting system, might as well adapt one of our weapons, the Octagon Sword. So what they did was they added a point in the front of the sword, so you can stab with these. Right? So the one I'm holding now is basically what the second generation uh, butterfly sword would look like, with a thick blade and point in the front, so you can stab with these very well. But still, only the first couple inches were sharpened. The rest was still dull. It wasn't until the modern era, during the early part of the uh, 18th century, 19th century, around those times, that people started to sharpen the entire length of the butterfly sword. So that's the third generation. If you see one that is sharpened all the way, that is the third generation. So these are the three generations of the butterfly sword. Now, obviously, for self-defense purposes, you're not going to carry these around. That's silly, right? But these are great for training, especially if you do any kind of punching, Wing Chun kind of training. Each one of these is about a pound, so it's like hand weight, allow you to play with swords, and it's pretty cool. Okay, this is actually why I bought them. I don't really care about the butterfly sword, the batching down system, but they're great for training aids and fun to mess around with. When you hold these, traditionally, you carry them in the crook of your left, laying in the crook of your left arm and just cradled in your left hand like this against your body. This is the most casual carry when it's not being concealed under your robe or in your sleeve. Right? Most people will carry it like this uh, in their left hand with both blades lean back in the crook of the elbow like this. Right? It looks very casual, but if you get into a heated argument or any kind of situation, someone suddenly pull out a sword, then you can bring these to bear right away. Okay, so I'm not like grabbing one and then try to get the other one, right? If someone comes at me with a sword and I have these cradled here, I'm just bringing the whole both thing out in both hands like this, block the sword, separating them, and now I'm ready for action. That is the traditional way of carrying and deploying. When you're holding the butterfly sword, you can hold it like just a regular sword like this with your hand wrapped around the hilt. But if you are more confident, you can also have your forefinger resting on the side of the blade and your thumb resting on the crossguard point. But we'll talk about the crossguard point a little bit. This is a very cool feature that on this sword. But first, I want to talk about what made the butterfly sword such good choices that they adopted for the Wing Chun, for something that they can use to fight a lot of other weapons with. Now, if I have like a regular sword, or well, this is a training sword, but it's approximate a regular sword, right? If I have a regular sword and someone come at me and swing a much heavier sword at me, maybe heavier broadsword like this, okay, much heavier. I'm not going to be able to block this very good with my skinnier sword, even though it's about the same length, even longer. The skinnier sword is even longer. But someone swing something this heavy at me, yeah, this is not going to do it. However, with our butterfly blade, our butterfly sword, it's stout enough, it's heavy enough that even if something this big being swung at me, I'm going to push my blade in out to meet it, no problem. I have hand guard around my hand. I have a 3 inch, 3 inch wide blade to block anything that comes at me. So this is like the ultimate blocking and parrying weapon, sort of like your Wing Chun practice. Wing Chun is really good for parrying and blocking attacks. And because this butterfly sword have hand guard in front of your fist, they also almost double duty as brass knuckle when you put your Wing Chun punches to use. Okay? A lot of time when I'm practicing my punches, I'll hold these like that, right? No problem. Okay, I can even get down on the floor and do push-up while holding them. push up while holding them. Huh? If an attack come toward your leg, you don't even have to swing your arm down to block it. You just swivel this down on your finger, block the attack. The weight of the sword will allow it to go against the attack, and then you swing it back up into your grip. Now, let me show you guys the function of these little points on the cross guard, this little forward pointing thing on the cross guard. First, let me set up my little sword training DIY kit.